Alright guys, 2022. 2022 was a really good year for me. Even though it started becoming quiet around July until August and September and all that. It started coming back at the end of the year, and I'm pretty proud to say that this is probably going to be the best Railfanning year for me in a few years. But we'll see what 2023 brings us. But anyways, onto the video. Our first train of the year that was good was CSX I009 with the CSX 911 leading. This unit is decorated in the first responders colors to honor the first responders. Directly behind I009 that day was IO17 with CSX 8833 trailing. That is an ex-Con LSD-40-2. A few days later, we catch CSX G103 from Albany with a Ferromex Ace trailing second. This was the only Ferromex locomotive that came up to New York on CSX this year. Now into the month of February. Our first train is CSX Q627 with CSX 3194 leading, decorated into law enforcement colors to honor the law enforcement. February is usually the month where military trains from KCS start coming in to Fort Drum. So here's a military train from KCS with KCS power going to Fort Drum. Our next train is CSX K685. This train had two CN locomotives, with one being in the middle with two other CSX locomotives. Here we see Q364. Once again, it has 3194 leading. Next up, we have a G107 with some nice BNSF power. Next we have a CSX Q367 with some nice CN power and CSX power. The second motor is a CN SD70M-2 Thundercab. Only 25 of these were built for the CN. The rest of the M-2 variants were nose lights and isolated cabs. Next we have CSX IO17 with CSX 500 trailing third. The 500 is Spirit of Grafton. Next train we see is CSX I001 with some pretty rare BNSF power. This is a rare occurrence for intermodal trains. Next we have CSX Q367 with some solid KCS power. The lead unit is a KCSM ES44 AC. final catch for February is NS 8100 paired with an SD75i from CN in the CSX Frontier Yard in Buffalo, New York.
Heritage and Frontier.
We've only had one NS Heritage unit touch our line this year. And this was the Heritage unit, the Nickel Plate Road.
Got some other neat catches here.
Moving into March now, we catch a Downeaster NPCU trailing third on Amtrak PO48. Leading is Amtrak 100 Midnight Blue. Next up is K632 with the Next up is K632 with the KCS Thundercab Ace Duo. Next we have I-157. I-157 had CSX 527 leading this time. That is the
it's an emblem!
Nashville, Chattanooga, and STL emblem. Next up we have a very rare Riverline Extra symbol running. And he had a 1-2 duo and that KCS Thundercab duo we saw a few days ago. I believe this train is only once a year. Next up we have B713. It's a very burnt NS-9 leading a CN ES44. Next we have CSX G108 with a BNSF trio. Next we have M560 with a very big lash up with 7 locomotives total.
CM40-8, I believe, 779. And GP40 and 69.
Next we have NS315 parked in Bison Yard. He had a CSX Tier 4 Gevo, which is decently rare on NS. Next we are at Frontier Yard. We have a CN 100th anniversary parked next to the yard office with a CN patched City Rail locomotive. CN bought a lot, I believe almost all, if not all, City Rail Gevos. They can now be seen patched for CN. Next up is NS69N. He had NS 1073 solo this day. Now moving into April. Here we have the first heritage duo down the southern tier line in 9.5 years. I believe this is the first one ever to touch the southern tier line. Next we have some really nice foreign power on NS68N with a KCSM Gevo leading a UP Thundercab and a CP Gevo. Next we have W004 with SRS 131. This is a track inspection vehicle.
It's going into the yard, it seems. There it is. Now we got a CSX intermodal.
Next up is NSW16. This train was really nice because it had two UP Aces up front with two UP AC44s on the rear. Both of the UP AC44s on the rear were ex-Southern Pacific.
Southern Pacific paint scheme. I believe that was recently repainted.
Next up is M635. Thankfully this train had an issue in Syracuse and they had to get a locomotive from Selkirk, run it all the way up there, and have the Selkirk crew take it west to Rochester. And then they had to tie down in Rochester for about 30 minutes to get a new crew. This made it a day run. He had 4 Pan Am SD40s with a very weird DPU placement due to the original AC-44 dying in Syracuse. Next up, we have Frontier Yard. Here we see two CNGP9 slug units and a CNES-44AC.
Oh, I see slugs. I see CN slugs. No way. Oh my god, they're here. And that was Frontier Yard with CN and CN slugs.
We are back in Corfu as we see CSX B714 passing by with CNSD75I trailing. It combined with coal empties. Next up, we have the James Bond Special, aka I-007, with two UP units. This is a very rare occurrence. On the next day, we see Amtrak P048 with Amtrak 108 trailing second and 3 Northeast Corridor geometry cars.
There goes 48 with 30.
Next up, we see CSX M264 with CSX 3415 leading. This is the Georgia Road emblem.
Well then. That's surprise number one.
Next up, we see M560 with CSX 1776 leading. This is the first time he had touched the line this year. Next up, we have NS316 with the UP AC6000 trailing.
UP. AC6000, alright.
For the last train in April, we see C6 I-007 with the same UP power we saw a few days ago. The first train in May was a very good one. The CN3115 BC Rail Heritage trailing second. We saw him later in that day in Frontier Yard.
Oh my god, yes. Here today. Same time, seeing 3115 in the day. Right. Anyways, let's go to the Amtrak station.
Next up, we have M560. This train had an MBTA F40PH-3C rebuilt at Erie, going back to MBTA. We caught him again a few times later.
Yeah. Wonder why he's...
Next up is P048 with Amtrak 157, the Heartland Flyers Big Game Train. We also have New York Central's Babbling Brook private car at the rear of 48 that day. Next up we have P001. This is also known as the Office Car Special, with CSX 1, 2, and 3. This train was recently repainted into the Baltimore and Ohio paint scheme to honor the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad.
There goes the P001. That train originates in Jacksonville, Florida, and is heading north towards Chicago via New York.
Next up we have CSX I003 with CSX 1776 leading. Next we have P048 carrying Amtrak 708's third. These goes back to Amtrak in Albany after going to Beech Grove last year in August. It was finally released in May and is heading back in the new Empire Service Phase 3 scheme. Next up is G107 with a BNSF Ace leading with a BNSF War Bonnet third.
Woo! Yes!
We're back out again for CSX G108. This is the same power we saw yesterday on G107, except with the C6 ES40 DC. It was dropped in Selkirk. Next up we have CN 8952 sitting in Frontier. I caught this unit earlier last year, but he got in a minor accident in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and is bound for AMP in Dansville, New York. He is still sitting there as of right now. Next up we have M560 with another MBTA F40-PH-3C.
AC-44-8.
Major foamer warning.
AC-44 for sure. Wow, that guy's really slow. Oh my god! No way! Oh my god! Let's go! Yes! Oh my god, yeah!
Anyways, next up we have an NSSD-70 ACC trailing second on Q367. This was the only one that touched CSX this year on our line. Diving right into June, we have a CSX Q364 with the CN ET44 DPU. Next up we see its predecessor, Q363, with a CSX SD50-3 with a 40-3 trailing. I believe there's only 4 SD50s left on CSX, most of them being stationed in Selkirk for yard switching. Next we see I003 with CSX 5107 as the DPU. This unit is now capped and stored in Cumberland. It will be going to Fort Worth sometime this year to be rebuilt into CM44. Next we see the same power from Q364 a few days ago. Next up we have an M560 with very nice MS power. A solid ace duo, one of them being solo up front and one being the DPU. Next up, more CN power. M561 on this day had a CN ES44 trailing. Next up we have a B695 with the CN M-2 Thundercab leading with one of only 4 CN Ace DPUs as the DPU. These 4 Aces CN bot are ex-EMDX testers.
There goes B695. That train originates out of Chicago, Illinois at the CN Yard and heads east to the Port of Albany. Listen to this EMD screen. Got a rare SD70 M-2 cab light leading with a rare CN EMDX SD70 Ace as a rear DPU.
Next up we have a B742 with a UP SD70M flared radiator trailing second. Next up we have a B759 with a UP-AC44 with a very shiny CN SD70 M-2 trailing.
Looks like we got a westbound coming, so Union Pacific, Building America. Really dirty locomotive. And then we got the clean, shiny SD70M. It's getting hot out here. 90 degrees basically.
Next up we have a BNSF war bonnet trailing second on a very long CSX G107. This train was about 220 cars long and 2.5 miles long. Next up, we have a Norfolk Southern AC-44 C6M trailing second. These units are being rebuilt from NS-9s, my bad. Next up, we have NS-23K. This unit had a BNSF war bonnet leading. Next up, in the last train for June, is CSX X368 with 2 Pan Am standard cabs, trailing 4th and 5th. These are ex-CSX units, but CSX bought out Pan Am, and they have received them once again. Next up, we have NS-68N with 1 of 5 CP Army units for the railroad. This is CP-7023, the Air Force unit, leading. Next up, we have an NS rail train unloading its welded rail. We weren't too sure about its power because it was so bright and it was behind trees. Never seen this. Got a train coming. Here comes the times when CSX became a nightmare in Buffalo and New York State. Here we have B727 with nice CP and NS power. They were running out of conductors, I believe, so lots of trains were beginning to tie down for days upon weeks into almost a month.
combining these two. So, there's, I think this is B727.
Next up, we have Amtrak P283 with an Amtrak P42 and Amtrak P40 trailing with the Pacific Bend crew car. This is due to the Acela deliveries. They have rerouted them by CSX, so because of NS keeping them waiting. I believe the one before this one, back in November of last year, had to wait a total of 6 hours due to a local to get out of the Alstom plant. Here we see NS 022, the Acela move, pass by us here at a crossing with the brand new Acela train set. This is train set number 4. Here we have CSXP 935, which is once again the Acela train set number 4 delivery. Here we go into August. August was the best month for me with a total of 21 trains. So here we go. Here we have NS22K with a CSX AC44Y2 trailing. This is very rare for NS. Next up, we are in Fairport. Here we have Amtrak PO48 with 8 private cars at the rear. Here we see PO48 again, with Amtrak 130 trailing third. This unit is going to Albany to get ACSES installed. Next up we have W003 with CSX 9969. This is the only GP40 wide cab CSX has. I believe it's ex-Maryland commuter, or Mark. Next up we have a combined ethanol on CSX B726 with 4 different railroads on it. Next up we have a CSX B741 tied down here in Frontier with a BNSF ES44C4 leading an NS AC44C6M. This is a prime example of what CSX has been doing, tying down so many trains that only one track is available. But here we have a CSX I-169 with 10 locomotives. This is due to CSX having to pay back UP and BNSF for power hours, due to them using their engines for so many years. Next up we have Amtrak 100 leading P048. Once again, a prime example of what CSX is doing, tying down so many trains that only one track is available. But here we see M364 with 2 CP units up front, KCS ET44 in the middle, and UP GVO in the middle. But you can sadly not see those. And we missed it because it snuck out of Buffalo. The KCS and CP units never returned. Next up we have an M627 parked at Sheldon Avenue with 3 BNSF units trailing, one of them being an H1. This is due to AMP allowing BNSF to send locomotives down for repairs. Next we see P048 with Amtrak 108 leading. Here we see M627 with a CN patched City Rail and a normal CN GVO. We see Amtrak P048 once again, but it has a CT Rail P40DC trailing third. Amtrak allowed CDOT to send their P40s to Beech Grove due to them being ex-Amtrak units. They have been rebuilt and repainted. Next up we have an extremely rare SD40-2W. It somehow snuck to AMP a few months ago, and it came back up from AMP. It is paired with an M-2. Next up we see I-008. This is the first train on the CSX on our line to receive the new UP paint. The new UP paint, in my honest opinion, looks it looks good if only the shield was way smaller and they added the wing logo back. Next up we have an 68N with a CN patched City Rail GVO trailing third. Next we have NS310 with an NSGP38-2 Operation Lifesaver trailing forth. Next we see that UP power from I008 once again. But it had a CSX AC44 put on it. And instead of the UPSD70 on it. Next we have NS310 with UP power, an NSSD60E, and a tanker on a flatbed. There was also 2 NS units in the middle. Next we are in September. Here we have NS310 with a warbond leading, and then UP Tier 4 Ace trailing second. We were back out again an hour later after hearing NS264 depart with the UP Tier 4 Ace leading. Next up we have NS69N with some UP power, and the third unit being a UP AC6000. Next we have CSX B728 with CSX 7929 lead second. This is the only XLMS-8 on CSX remaining in service. Next up we have NS4002 leading NS310. Next we have CSX M560 with 4 GECX CSX-8s and 2 of them being ex-Conrail. There's also a new Metro North BLGH20 or whatever they call those. For the last train of September, it is G104 with 2 Pan Am C40-8s trailing. We're going into October as we see an S265 with 2 BNSF locomotives. Next up we have an S310 with some UP power. The leader is a UP AC6000. There were 2 mid-train DPUs on this train. Next up we have M560 with more GECX CSX-8s, one of them being ex-Conrail. Then see a welded rail train tied down outside a frontier yard with the CSX SD40-2 Solo. Mitsubishi M363 with 2 nuclear waste hazmat containers. Next up, we go over by ONYR to possibly see UP 1983 off in the distance. I wish the sun wasn't shining so bright and it was actually shining from the other direction, just so that we could see it. Next up, we're at Lake Avenue. This day would be a very good day, possibly my best day ever railfanning this year. With the first train being WO84, a UP Herzog ballast train coming from the UP in Rose Lake, bound for Rochester. Next up is M560 with an Amtrak GP38 going to Amtrak in Philadelphia and 3 old CPSD40s. These units are bound for Dansville. Unknown what's going to happen to them. They are still in Dansville as of right now. Next up, Amtrak delivery for the Avelia numero 5. Next we see an NS68N with some nice forwarding power, with a KCS Jivo leading a BNSF Ace and an NS Jivo trailing third. Next we are in Frontier. Here we see CSX W001 cars with CSX 3194 moving around. Enjoy these next 5 minutes with 3194 moving around Frontier Yard. The very next day we catch CSX M364 with CSX's brand new Operation Lifesaver Mac. Next up we have NS265 with NS8114 trailing third. Next up we have NS310 with the KCS Thundercat base leading, with the UPAC-44 second and NS-9 third. For the final train of October, we have an Amtrak P048 with 2 private cars on the head end. Next up is CSX B699 with the UPAs leading. At the rear is a UPAC 44. B725 with an extremely rare KCS BNSF-9 patch. These units were sold to KCS after BNSF sold most of their a lot of their -9s to GECX. Next up we have the NSFRA train with the BNSF AC-44 C4M leading. This is a very rare locomotive due to only 20 being rebuilt from War Bonnet -9s. Next up, we have a B727 with a BNSF mech leading and a BNSF Ace as the rear DPU. Next up, we have CSX IO17 with CSX T1776 leading, with the CSX T9280 second. As of right now, this is the only CSX C40-8 painted into YN3C and renumbered. Next up, before the major lake effect snow ban that came in mid-November, is CSX M364 with a CN SD70M-2 leading. 4 days later, finally the storm subsides and we have a B706 with a CSX AC44 leading 2 CN-9s. The first CN-9 is an Illinois Central reporting Mark-9. Next up, we have M627 with 3 GECX-8s, 2 being CSX and 1 being an NSB32-8. Next up is NS264 with an extremely rare BNSF patched Santa Fe war bonnet. This is the only one to touch New York this year. Next up, we have a CSX B107 with BNSF power. This is crude oil loads. Next up, we have an M560 with CSX 7001, two SD40s, 3 extra Norfolk Southern SD70Ms. These are sold off to Ontario Northland. Next up, we have Amtrak PO63 with a 1X0X1 configuration. The rear locomotive is being used for NFL Project Protect. Next up, we have an NS309 parked in Alden siding with a CP leader and some NS power and BNSF. Next up, we have B727 with CSX 9280 trailing second. Next up, we have P048. After breaking down in Indiana just east of Elkhart, NS sent out an SD70 ACU to save the train. This unit would stay on until Albany, where it would go back to NS after the power would be cut away in Albany and this train splits. Just a few minutes after, we see CSX M561 very unknowingly with CSX 454 leading, which is the Spirit of Magnolia. Next up we see a BPRR train. This is the first time I've seen BPRR actually running.
Ooh, I got a gold mine.
Next up is the NS-264 with NS-7550 leading NS-8102, the Pennsylvania Railroad Heritage. NS-7500 is the only NS locomotive, I believe, mainline locomotive that has an RS-5T. It sounds really good, and I hope it stays around for a pretty long time. Anyways, that is going to wrap up this 2023 recap video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to give it a like along with subscribing. I hope you all have a happy New Year's, and I will see you in the new year. Goodbye, everyone.